Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Today we are going to present about the application of doctrine of Decisis in these three eras. So, doctrine of Decisis, where the material facts are the same, a court must follow the prior decision of a higher court which is vertical and its own prior decision horizontal, where the parts are present in the same hierarchy. Ratio decidendi with similar facts bind the future courts, not the decision. So, for the first era, the first one is Privy Council, the highest one, also known as the apex court, which holds appellate jurisdiction, binding all lower courts. In the case of Director General of Inland Revenue and Kulim Rubber Plantation in 1981, which involved the Federal Court, Privy Council was not bound by its own previous decision. And under the Privy Council is Federal Court. Federal Court bound by the decision of Privy Council. All lower courts are bound to follow the decision of Federal Court regarding the civil and criminal matter. It is also bound by its own previous civil decision. For example, in the case of Central Securities Holding Berhad and Harun bin Muhammad Zaid in 1980. However, it is not bound by its own previous criminal decision, and this can be seen in the case of Ui Hei Koi against public prosecutor in 1966. The last one in the first era is High Court. The doctrine also applied to all subordinate courts to be bound with the Federal Court and Privy Council.
In the second era, the Privy Council was abolished, and its decision after January 1985 in appeals from Malaysia bind in Malaysian courts. Section 3 of Judicature Act 1984 implied that any appeal pending before the Privy Council on 1st January 1985 will be safe. Yet, the appeals made from other common law countries are not binding in Malaysian courts. As for the Supreme Court, it is not bound by the previous federal courts. For example, in the case of Government of Malaysia and Lim Kit Sian 1988, which the majority decision departed from the federal court decision. In Doctrine, Osman against Attorney General 1986 shows that the Supreme Court is bound by its own previous decision. Next, the High Court was bound to follow previous decision of the Privy Council unless the decision is inconsistent with a decision of the Supreme Court been modified by the legislation. In Katavarayan and Eng Suk Moy and another 1987, the lower tribunal should follow the precedent set by Federal Court.
Moving on to the third era, Federal Court decision binding all lower courts. Section 17 of the Courts of Judicature Act 1995 stated that any proceeding pending before the Supreme Court on 23rd June 1994 shall continue in the Federal Court, whether Federal Court bound by its previous decision as Supreme Court. According to Ahmad Maruf, judge in Anchorage Mall, Sdn Bhd and Irama Team, Sdn Bhd and another, Supreme Court in era 2 binds the Federal Court unless it is reserved by the Federal Court. In Malaysian National Insurance Sdn Bhd and Lim Tiok in 1997 case, this is a civil case. It illustrates that Federal Court is not bound by the decision of the Supreme Court for civil cases. However, in criminal cases such as in Tan Boon Kin against public prosecutor in 1995, the Federal Court unanimously had itself bound by the Supreme Court decision. For position of Privy Council decision in this era is that Privy Council not bind the lower courts. In the case of Arul Paragasan anak lelaki Sandaraju against public prosecutor in 1997, the court departed from the principle laid down by the Privy Council in Hau Tua Tau against public prosecutor on burden of proof.
For the appeal court, it is the same as the previous court, the doctrine of Decisis. In Edgar Joseph Jr., in Cooperative Central Bank Limited and Fayan Development Sdn Bhd 1977, published the doctrine which is Decisis as a tone of our system of jurisprudence, the ruling that in accordance with the doctrine to of appeal to disregard a judgment court on the that it was given per inquirium. However, the court can be bound by its own past decision with three exceptions. The first is if the decision of the court of appeal conflicts with a later decision of the higher court. Court of appeal must follow the higher court where there are two earlier conflicting decisions of the court of appeal. Then the later court of appeal in the third case must choose between them. The third is where an earlier decision of the court of appeal was made per inquirium. For example, the earlier court of appeal overlooked something that was binding on it, such as statute. The later courts are bound to follow their earlier decision. Thusly, for the High Court in this era, since it is lower than the court must follow the binding decision made by the Court of Appeal previously. It can be seen in the case of Government of the Lao Democratic Republic and Lai Tau Lignite Corporation and another 2010, where the judges court had to follow the decision made by the Court of Appeal to dismiss the appeal made by the appellant. We have made a mind map that illustrates operation on the doctrine of Decisis in these three eras. This mind map is the general illustration of the doctrine while the details have been explained just now in our first slide. That's all from us. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.